Now, I won't fault you if you've had trouble placing him. After all, it's been years since Samuel Rolzerbacher, known by his nom de plume, Joe the Plumber, first got then-candidate Barack Obama to say this.
My attitude is that if the economy is good for folks from the bottom up, it's going to be good for everybody. If you've got a plumbing business, you're going to be better off if you've got a whole bunch of customers who can afford to hire you. And right now, everybody's so pinched that business is bad for everybody. And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
Spread the wealth around, remember that? Republican presidential nominee John McCain seized on the comment and gave Sam the Joe the Plumber name, turning him into an avatar for quote-unquote Main Street America. Since then, Joe the Plumber has become an author, a war correspondent, and in 2009, a former Republican. Yet, here he was in 2012, running as a Republican unsuccessfully for a congressional seat in his native Ohio, and backing a different guy for president, Herman Cain. I remind you of all of this because Mr. Plummer reposted on his site this week this blog by conservative radio host and author Kevin Jackson, who is African-American. Yes, that's the headline. America needs a white Republican president. It begins, quote, admit it. You want a white Republican president again. Admit it, America. Wait until you see where this goes. Jackson writes, now, before you start feeling like you're a racist, understand that you are not. Jackson goes on to assert that Ronald Reagan's white Republican presidency was great for black Americans, while Barack Obama's black Democratic one has been bad, bad, bad. But his central point remains that we could criticize President Reagan because he's white, while criticizing President Obama gets you called a racist. And if that risk has limited the criticism that the president gets, I haven't noticed. Anyway, Jackson concludes by writing that at least if we had a white president, black people might have a shot of regaining a modicum of respect. Oh, yes, if only. Now, we know that as ludicrous as all that sounds, it's hardly an outlier. This is just the latest taste of how some people, see even some black people might have reacted to having an African-American president. It's not just an issue of an angry blog post or a Confederate flag showing up in front of the White House as one did last week during a Tea Party shutdown. The biggest problem here is in suggesting that being called racist is worse than the harm of the effects of racism. And this week it was the far-right madness of the blog that Joe the Plumber reposted, but the idea that the president's blackness is an impediment to governing is not restricted to the fringes. Every time the left argues that Tea Party obstruction is caused by having a black president, it's actually a subtle argument that a white president would receive less aggressive opposition, that it would be easier to govern without the barrier of presidential blackness. Maybe y'all would like to call Mr. Bill Clinton and ask him about that one.